everyone. I am Joe Clote with Meet Publications, and I'm going to have a discussion here with Robert Huckstep, who is the person involved with Capture Technologies in St. Louis. Also out of, I think, Robert, New Jersey is your headquarters.
Yep, headquartered out of Hillside, New Jersey.
Yep. So one of the things that we've looked at, certainly since COVID, is what has happened with the gatherings, the meetings, the events, but certainly from a technology side at these live events. And I think it has impacted certainly a lot of us in the, if not the entire hospitality industry. Can you talk a little bit about just what you've seen from your perspective, what's happened with the gatherings? Are they larger, smaller, and just how they're utilizing the technology, and what ways your company or organizations like yours had to react to be able to accommodate these changes?
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Joe.
Sure.
Capture Technologies, real quickly, Capture, we are, a full service on-site solutions provider. We're an event technology provider. And now, you mentioned how did it impact COVID? Well, it impacted us. We have to be virtual now. We have to be AV techs now as well. So, just kind of starting out there, just kind of setting the tone of, what we do, what we saw, in 2019, 95% of the people were meeting in person. You very, very rarely heard the word virtual, or, you did hear Zoom meetings, then come 2020, you have 100%. In the summer of 2020, 100% of the people are meeting virtually. Nobody's really meeting in person, and now we're really just now kind of seeing the dust settle, and it's kind of taking its time here of what's going to come. What is the meeting's future going to look like? From an attendance standpoint alone, is it going to be?
Yeah.
We know we've got this coined term hybrid, or is it going to be 60% in person and 40% virtually? When that dust settles, what's that going to look like? And I think one of the big take-home things is we're learning as this is growing and developing is kind of hybrid is what you make it as an attendee, as an organizer, things like that. Are you giving this content out, virtually, in person? Are you doing it both? Are you just going to offer in person? How are your people going to digest this content? How are they going to absorb this? And I think, we're going to see a nice mixture of hybrid events come in the future. That's just kind of my take on it. But we've seen a lot of different things we went from, I'll go back to 2020, where, we thought it was going to be just a couple of months. We talked about a lot of touchless options. So for registration, touchless badging, for scanning, touchless, session scanning for in-person meetings, more passive tracking. And then we even got into looking into passive temperature tracking, where when taking somebody's temperature was top of mind there. So we looked into things like that, and mask enforcement with facial recognition. So all these things kind of boiled up, and nothing has really settled down yet. We're still kind of socializing these things out there. But one thing that has come to the forefront of the planners' minds is capacity controls, access controls. So those are still very important with venues, having lower capacities. So with technology, we're able to track those people and track, in and out, and when people are there, and how long they've spent. So that's becoming a little more prevalent on the technology side. So that's kind of a general overview. I know I covered a lot there. I don't know what I missed there, Joe.
No, that's great. That is a lot. Robert, I know in the past RFID technology and that was utilized. Is that even more so going forward? Does it work with the touchless technologies in that?
Absolutely. I think facial recognition and RFID, two technologies that will be very present in the future. And we really started to gain some ground in 2019 for facial recognition and RFID. A lot more buy-in, a lot more people accepting that, a lot more attendees and event organizers planning for that. And yeah, creating a passive environment where people can pass through a threshold without having to touch anything and get that transaction or that badge tracked is definitely something that's going to stick around for a long time. And facial recognition, allowing that touchless experience at check-in for a security standpoint, that's where what 2019, if we rewind, it was a lot of security things that we were talking about with facial recognition. We wanted more secure events. So how can we do that? Well, we can obviously have an image of the face and make sure that that person's supposed to be where they're supposed to be. So I think that's coming back around, and then some. It's got different purposes for passive scanning or even sentiment analysis of sessions. So now we're having to justify having these meetings, right? We're having to justify meeting virtually or in person, to please the stakeholders. So why not turn the cameras back on? If you're meeting in person, turn the camera back on the audience and get their sentiment of the audience, get what they're feeling, how that speaker did, how they're reacting to the content that's in front of them, and then obviously match those up with a post-session survey and an evaluation of that session, and give that purpose, or give that sponsor purpose for coming, and a little bit more data on what transpired at their session. So a lot of things that are coming, and I think it's here to stay.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think you said it, the safety issue and the facial recognition part of it, I think will come back and stay.
Right.
This isn't a world where that technology isn't needed and certainly needs to be implemented. Again, pre-COVID, let's say, organizations, show producers, and that would be setting up their conference that maybe didn't look at having a camera in every room, that they weren't having the demand to have that broadcast out. I'm assuming part of this is that now that is needed, those cameras will be in there if you're going to do this hybrid. So from a budgeting standpoint for show producers, what should they be looking at? If it's not a dollar amount, a percentage of, adding 10-15% more to their technology budget, because to do the hybrid, I looked at as a show producer, it's a double hit. Now you have to produce that analog show with all those expenses, and now add the technology side, that some of it you might have done AV for a general session, but now we're getting into some of the things you just described are going to have to be included, and to keep that, again, live feed or not, a live feed is so much more expensive, and the bandwidth to do that versus just to have a camera in there and to be able to capture that. Can you address that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to hybrid is what you make it. And I think, Joe, you and I talked about this before. If you have your virtual event and your in-person event, well, if you come down a step from in-person, you have broadcast only. And you mentioned it, you might just broadcast your keynote speaker.
Yeah.
Or if you come up from virtual, it's digital first. You might have a little bit of in-person, but it's mainly a virtual event. And then there's that sweet spot of hybrid in the middle where you do have both audiences coming together. You're broadcasting all of your content. Working with planners as far as true hybrid goes, and getting those cameras in the rooms and taking that double hit, we're working as best we can with them to try to mitigate or get around, all of those items. We want to make sure that the virtual audience has that good experience, but most importantly, that content gets out there. And a lot of times we're saying, if you are just a step down and you're digital first and you're just doing the keynote, or maybe a couple of rooms. So that's kind of where we're baby stepping it back or in. If you have to have your in-person event, let's have a couple sessions. Let's have the keynote room, and that's going to be a full production company, and they're going to make sure that that's broadcasted out. We'll work with them. And also maybe let's do a couple of session rooms, and maybe we just need a camera and a technician in that room, where we don't need the full deployment of a production company and everything. So that's the way we're kind of working with them, to take baby steps to say, what tracks do you want to broadcast out? What tracks need to be broadcast out? But yeah, for sure, if you're looking to broadcast the entire event, we have to strategize or become good partners with you as tech providers to say, this is how we recommend doing this. Is that an option? And if no, then we'll take another path. Is this an option? If yes, then let's go down this path and see how we can save you some money, because we realize that a lot of the costs in the hotels have gone up too. We've experienced that firsthand with some clients. We'll go talk to them about internet requirements, and we'll have to lower our internet requirements because our lines are quite a bit expensive, more expensive now.
Some of the just nationally reading and following the news on this of what's happening just overall to, so I know the weddings industry is certainly going through a big change where they absolutely are seeing smaller weddings. They are coming down. But if if on the trade show side and the large convention side that we see that, and the physical attendance is either subdued or purposefully, because of the technology, allows people to not have to make that trip but can still get the bulk of the experience. I remember when the conference and virtual technology and virtual trade show technology first came into being, probably now 15 so years ago, and everybody thought, oh my gosh, it's going to replace the real trade show. With going through what we've just gone through, is it here to stay, this hybrid, or will we get back to where really people do want the in person, and it'll be the bulk of it, and this hybrid technology and that will be the secondary 5-10%? Or where do you kind of see that in a crystal ball kind of way, or
Right, right.
what you're already seeing? How does
Yeah.
that look like? What does it look like going forward?
Yeah, it's tough. 2 weeks ago you asked me that question, and I would say that in person is coming back and it's
Yeah.
resurging, and unfortunately, virtual is for some people in some industries they're dropping it off very quickly. They're needing to go back to in person, which is fine for that particular industry. And then now you're seeing a resurgence, and other people are second guessing in person, so they are going to this hybrid model. And I think for the short term future, the folks, the planners that are planning for hybrid and planning for your half capacity events, those are going to be the winners in the near future. And then yeah, if I had my crystal ball looking forward, I think in person is going to come back with, I'm hoping that in person comes back with a surgence. But I still think we would be doing a disservice as planners and technology providers to find solutions that allow us to have a hybrid component in it, and be very inclusive and have other people be able to view this content in whatever manner. If that's not live, maybe it's post event.
Yeah.
Like you said, just record it and have it there. I think there really has to, we would be doing a disservice if we didn't take this moment, take a step back and say, we really probably should be doing this. What's the best way we can do it? And we're still seeing that dust settle to how can we better help, and how can we help plan with these planners, partner with them to make sure that we give that best experience provided for anybody trying to view this content.
Yeah. Does that planner, that person on the other side of the desk from you, when you're sitting down with them to talk to them about their upcoming conference or that, are they needing to be very tech savvy and understand everything that companies like yours are talking about? Do they need to hire a person that can, quote, talk to a company like yours? What is their, and what do you see the intimidation of, oh my gosh, I didn't, prior to COVID, I didn't have to get into all this stuff. Now I do. What, either alleviate their fears or create more fear for them with regard to that?
I can only speak for myself. I'm in sales, but I'm actually client education. I sit
Okay.
down and try to absorb what they're saying. I can't say that for everybody else in the industry, and I've heard the horror stories of, here's the platform, have fun.
Yeah.
Here's this virtual platform, have fun. For the planners, there's a lot. Everybody's been doing demos. I hear that, I do a demo on a platform, and then 2 weeks later you can do a demo on the same platform and there's new features,
Yeah.
so it is a challenge. Hiring somebody to definitely have a point person that is, taking charge to understand the needs of your event, what you're trying to do, and then pick the best platform that does that. And I think we're finding, our approach has always been virtual can be a plug-in to the in-person event. And that's how we built our platform to begin with, our virtual platform. And I think we're seeing people come down to that now, is that, yeah, let's plan an in-person event, and let's have a bolt onto this have this hybrid feel. So if you can find providers like that, or have the similar mindset to you as in what you're trying to do in your strategy to get that content out, is it virtual full bore, and we just want a series of events and maybe go the full year, we're seeing a lot of different trends that are happening now. You got companies that wanting to give out content for the entire year now. So, does that platform allow of that? But it's asking a lot of questions internally, and then I'll be on the other side of the table asking those questions to make sure that we align as well. And hopefully, we're getting better as a tech industry to be more advisory and educational on what our products are and align that with you. Whereas early on, it was kind of shark infested waters, and it still is. There's a lot of platforms out there, virtual platforms, and unfortunately, at first they just wanted your money, and now I think we're seeing them come back off their and do a little bit more educational and aligning with the strategies.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great point. Well, in kind of wrapping up a little bit, Robert, is there any part of the country that you see maybe coming back or a little more bold in the comeback here, or is it fairly even across the U.S., both in size and scope of these events and
Uh,
gatherings?
right. No, we've had events in New Jersey. We've had events in Florida. Florida was the first larger one we had. I think
Okay.
that's to be expected. It was in Orlando. We had about 5,000 people there in late April.
Okay.
That was very successful. Dallas, we've had a couple in Texas, things like that. So yeah, we've across the states, that the clients have been wanting to meet. They're all planning for lower capacities. They all are planning, some sort of hybrid event in conjunction, whether that's live or afterwards. But yeah, we'll be out in Colorado Springs next week at the Broadmoor for the Space Symposium. So that'll be a great one. That's a fully hybrid event out in Colorado Springs, and looking forward to rolling that into some other ones. We did have a couple of clients postpone again, but I think we'll get them back on the books when they're ready, or we can help them virtually as well.
Great. Robert, how do the listeners and viewers get a hold of you if they want to follow up on stuff that you've talked about today and certainly hear more
Yeah.
about Capture Technologies products?
Yeah, I love connecting on LinkedIn. Find me, Robert Huckstep, on LinkedIn. You can email sales@ct.events. I'm on the other end of that one. I'll be sure to email you. And happy to just have these open conversations. Just happy to talk about what's relevant to you, and how we can help, how technology can help. It's not always going to be the solution, but I think it's going to help get us all there.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad companies like yours are out there and helping us in the meeting planning world get through it. So
Yeah,
appreciate you joining me today, Robert. And I'm sure we'll be
absolutely.
in touch and have another one or two or three of these in the future. Thank you.
Sounds great. Joe,
All
thanks
right.
so much.